This morning around 7 a.m., I got an email from English Department Chair Linda Chandler. A colleague of ours, Rachel Baccio, passed away yesterday. Rachel had been sick since last year. Folks in the department, I think, knew that. And in her note, Linda said, Rachel, who I think really discovered the joy of her job here at LaGuardia late in her career, she said it was the best job she ever had, made her happy. Linda said, Rachel Baccio loved LaGuardia, and LaGuardia loved her back. Anyway, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in memory of Rachel Baccio. Thank you. To my right is my friend Philip Green. I think everybody knows Philip. He's been an ASL. Philip has been an ASL interpreter here at LaGuardia for 35 years. And yes, he's thinking about retiring. You know, and he'll switch off interpreting duties today with Susan Weinstein. Susan is also rumored to be thinking about retiring. Susan's been at LaGuardia for 39 years. They have a lot of LaGuardia stories to share. Anyway, let's jump into the presentation. A little bit about the format. I'm going to make some brief, start of the semester updates from the podium here. Then I'll scurry over to my desk, and we're going to bring up 4 panels of experts to cover 4 really important and interesting initiatives that are going to be a big part of the spring semester. So that's the format. So what you want is for me to get out of here so we can get our guests up. So I'll try to be brief. Let's do a quick update on enrollment. The enrollment of our degree-seeking students this semester, as you can see in this bar graph, is up 9.4%. And that is a big applause line. That applause is for VP of Enrollment Management, Ben Roden, and his amazing team who have been working so hard going back to last summer, last spring, to sustain this enrollment growth. Our enrollment growth was not a bump or a one-off. It is sustained semester after semester. Just to put it in context, the average enrollment growth this spring among the 7 CUNY community colleges is 6.4%, and the CUNY overall system average is 2.6%. So at 9.4, well, we're doing pretty well. In fact, we're doing extremely well. There's an interesting kind of footnote to this. The enrollment growth this spring is driven especially by our success at re-enrolling continuing students. We always say it's not enough to get new students to come to LaGuardia, we have to keep them. And so we've seen a bump in the percentage of continuing students that form the enrollment for the spring semester of 15.5% compared to last year. That's an increase, 15% increase. The CUNY average is again 2.6%. So this is a category where we lead the entire system, actually by a long distance. We're the #1 school in the CUNY system for this increase in continuing students making up our spring semester class. The metric, that's a year-to-year metric, but there's something else to think about, which is fall to spring retention. Right, the percentage of students that were here in the fall semester that all of you had in your classes, how many of them have come back for the spring semester? That number is tentative right now. Kevin is looking at me. He does not want me to say it because it's unofficial. It's a really good number. And a couple weeks into the semester, when we close out the enrollment, we'll get the number to you. But that's looking really good. And these are both indicators of retention. Again, it's so important to have students stay and get get support, and make it to graduation, which, by the way, is June 18th in Queens College. Mark your calendars. A big shout out to our advisors. We've talked about this before on this stage. We've talked about it in the context of the strategic plan, but I really want to recognize our professional advisors at LaGuardia, led by Melissa Grant, the Assistant Dean for Advisement. And it is just a fact, and we all know this, but community college students in particular depend on thoughtful guidance and support from experienced, caring advisors. And at LaGuardia, our advisors are essential to student success, to this retention I'm talking about, and ultimately to completion. Now, we have today 38 advisors for our degree-seeking students. Most of them are our SAS advisors, of course, but we also have lots of ASAP advisors and several college discovery advisors. Melissa oversees all advising in the new system she and Billy and Eric have designed. So that's 38 advisors, still not enough. There are 2 vacancies Melissa and Eric are seeking to fill. And then we've committed in the new year, in July, to hiring 4 more, creating 4 more advising positions. So 6 and 38 will take us to 44 professional advisors. And at that point, we'll start to reduce caseloads for our advisors to more manageable levels. Again, this is something we committed to in the plan, and it's very, very important that we keep moving in that direction. I also want to make a note of something that Billy constantly reminds me of, which is there's an awful lot of advising done by faculty, right? Many of you, almost all of you, spend extra time to advise students in their disciplines. And that advising, if you take faculty advising generally in the disciplines, in the majors, helping students navigate the specifics of their academic program, and you couple that with the advising that we have under our team of professional advisors, that's the advising hug, academic and non-academic, that our students need, and it's working. I really think that's behind this really significant growth and retention. Let's take a look at enrollment in ACE. This is actually a different story. It's generally good, but there's some interesting things going on. This is a slide that indicates our enrollment for the first 6 months of this fiscal year. So think July 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. And you can see that enrollment in our pre-college programs, if you can read, that's a little hard to read the small fine print, overall has fallen by about 7%, mainly because we've had a big loss of students in our ESOL programs of the TELC, actually year-over-year loss of 22%. Now, Heather Barigmo and Liz Iannotti outside, they're right here, and we were talking about this over the coffee and donuts, have assured me that this is not as serious a problem as I worry about. I worry about this a lot. But it is cyclical. And you can imagine, for example, what happens when it's very hard for international students to get to the US and to enroll in the TELC, which we have a long history of serving students who come to Queens on visas. They get here and they go to the TELC. They're not coming, right? There's really been a big fall off in international students because of the Trump administration's immigration policies. I suspect there are also Queens residents who aren't coming because they're worried about ICE, they're worried about getting detained, they're worried about leaving the apartment. So we have this fall off, which again, 2 things. One is, it is cyclical, and it is the result of outside forces we don't control. But we've already started discussions. Liz and Heather, John Hunt have a lot of ideas about new things we can do to build this back up. So more on that later, but it's a solvable problem. On the other hand, a more positive note in overall ACE enrollment, there's something pretty incredible. In our workforce training programs, our vocational programs in healthcare, IT, carpentry, so on, building trades, enrollment in that 6-month period I just mentioned was up 28%, which is adding like 1/3 more students. VP Sunil Gupta reports that including programs that started last month in February, so they're running now this time, and some that began in January. TELC programs run year-round, right? Or sorry, ACE programs run year-round. If you go back to July, we have run 92 sections of 48 different training programs in ACE. And it's a total, we're talking about 7,749 students, the pre-college students, the TELC students, and the ACE students. And that's just in a 6-month period. If you double that, which is a safe assumption for the new 6 months, you see that we're almost, I'd say, a 50-50 college, about 14,000 students in our degree programs, our associate programs, another 14,000 students easily in our ACE programs. This all plays out in our budget, so I would be remiss not to mention how this is affecting our finances. Thank you to Senior Vice President Shahir Irfan and to our Business Office Director, Anthony Garofola, for this information. Now, this chart, I'm sorry, I don't know how you all feel about this, but this one makes me happy. This one makes me happy. With rising enrollment, our tuition revenue is up. As a marker, I think, of somewhat improved Queens economic conditions, collections are up too. We have fewer and fewer students getting to the situations where they have unpaid bills, and that's good. Our state and city funding has been basically stable after some last-minute restorations from the Adams administration. And thanks to Shahir and Anthony and Carmen and everyone in our budget office and their diligent oversight of our expenses, we're projecting a modest surplus for this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. And you can see, I think we have a slide that kind of bears that out with a little more detail. So our revenues, you saw from the previous slide, about $165 million against expenses of about $162 million, leaves us in the black. Whoever made that slide, Gina, good idea, black. Leaves us in the black about $4 million. And that, we haven't had something like that in a very, very, very long time. Now, when you run a surplus, it means we can start to build up our reserves, which disappeared with the deficits of the pandemic. And CUNY requires us to allocate these funds into our reserves and build up our reserves. It's like a rainy day fund, which we need to have. I am actually worried that rainy day could come as soon as this fall, winter, maybe early 2027. So we'll need these reserves. I'm concerned about the impact to New York State on federal reductions to Medicaid. You've all read about this, and it was part of the BBBA. New York and New York City have huge Medicaid programs. And if the federal government moves ahead with the cuts to Medicaid, the state budget has a big problem, and the city will feel that. And I think ultimately we and SUNY will feel that. So anyway, in preparing for that rainy day, it's important to have that surplus that we can dedicate to our reserves, because we're going to keep growing no matter what. Governor Kathy Hochul's executive budget, which she released on January 20th, is positive for CUNY. She's got continued support for the 30 SUNY community colleges and the 7 CUNY community colleges. And folks will recall the governor was here in August for an event for a program, CUNY SUNY Reconnect. And in the budget, she dedicated another $4.3 million to that, bringing that total program to $23 million in the state budget. This is being negotiated now with the State Assembly and the State Senate to be in place, and because it's an election year, I suspect it'll be on time by April 1st, which is the start of the city's fiscal year. Claudia, Manny, and I will be going to Albany on Tuesday. We spend the day there meeting with Queens members of the Assembly, members of the Senate, to thank them for their support of CUNY, to strengthen or repeat or drive home the chancellor's overall message to the state legislature, and then specifically to look for support for initiatives here at LaGuardia. A couple quick fundraising updates, and then we'll move on. But Jay Golan from the foundation and I announced last summer this campaign called Tomorrow 2.0. You may recall our post-pandemic Tomorrow campaign. We couldn't come up with a new name, so we said, let's Tomorrow 2.0. Now, this was based on an incredible, very generous offer of $10 million put on the table by an anonymous donor to the foundation that we get if we can raise $15 million by June 30th, which I just realized is only 4 months from now. Now, good news is, as you can see the slide, Jay reports that we've raised over $11 million towards the $15 million total already. So we're closing in on the goal. And can't promise anything, but I can tell you, well, I can promise this. We are going to work extremely hard with our foundation board led by Charles Boyce, the chair, and our board members to close that last little $4 million gap, $3.7 million gap, and get to that $15 million number and trigger the gift, making this $25 million campaign a reality by the fall. Don't clap yet because we're not there. But I can't tell you, and Jay and I have been talking about this, $25 million for the foundation is a whole nother level, and it enables for many years to come a much higher level of giving to support our students. And to put it in perspective, and this is a record in and of itself, this year, the year that we're in now, Jay and the foundation board plan to distribute $5 million in direct student aid, right, over 12 months. So we're in this process already. Now, this translates into financial awards like scholarships, stipends for internships, and emergency support to more than 3,000 LaGuardia students, including more than 500 ACE students. There is no community college in CUNY, and few around the country, I can assure you, that have foundations that provide that level of financial support to low-income students who need extra dollar support to get by. This, too, is part of the retention. When we're able, right? Thank you. It's really important. When Rhonda at LaGuardia Cares is giving out that food package or helping a student with an Airbnb apartment, all the things we do to remove the obstacles that sometimes get in the way of our students' educational dreams, they're supported by the foundation, so much of that work. So that is also critical for our students' success. Over on the other side of the office, so to speak, Laura Bardovics, and our team in the Office of Grants and Sponsored Programs, they have a lot going on, but I asked for highlights. She gave me 4. Professors Preeti Radhakrishnan and Chelsea Ankababi, and you know they're the, among other things. Where's Preeti? Preeti's here somewhere. And Chelsea might be as well. Chelsea is otherwise turning over the soil and spreading compost and other things, and Finca La Florecita, our amazing urban farm behind the C building. But anyway, they got $100,000 from soil to sound, empowering students to protect ecosystems through environmental science. Fantastic. Sunil Gupta and Chandana Mahadaswaraswamy in ACE were awarded $2 million by the U.S. Department of Education. It's called a FIPSI grant. FIPSI is the Fund for the Improvement of Post-Secondary Education. This just happened in January. While some of you might not have, weren't here. Sunil and Chandana did this grant proposal, and it was a very short time frame, so most community colleges in the country didn't bother to apply. Only three FIPSI awards came to New York State, and we got a $2 million award. It's a multi-year award. And I think 18 were awarded to community colleges around the country. So big congratulations. The award is for LaGuardia Workforce Success Engine for Pell Eligible Pathways. I have no idea what that is, but no, but it's $2 million. No, this is a major federal grant to help the college prepare for Workforce Pell, which I do know all about all too well. I've been lobbying on it for a number of years, which is a new provision in the law around Pell, the major form of federal financial aid for low-income students in the U.S. that will enable students to use a portion of their Pell Award for a non-degree workforce program. Did I mention 94 sections of 48 programs in ACE? People have to pay cash for those programs forever and ever, but not anymore. Come July 1, some of those programs will be Pell eligible, and the FIPSI grant is to help us prepare with the state and CUNY a menu of these programs for workforce Pell. So congratulations. Hannah Wanstock, also in ACE, we know Hannah, got $200,000 from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation for her community health worker training program. This has now been running for several years. It's incredibly successful. Congratulations to Hannah. Yes. And Health Sciences Chair Phil Gimber, always a busy fellow, worked with Julianne Salazar from the Office of Academic Affairs to score a $152,000 grant from CareerWise New York for the Healthcare Youth Pathway Accelerator. Now that's complicated, and we'll talk about it another time, but I went to the launch meeting. Eric was there. It's going to be amazing, and it's another one of our partnerships with Queens high schools, in this case to help them get on LaGuardia pathways to degrees in healthcare. Now, I will just say that in the first 6 months of this year, if you check in with Laura, PIs or principal investigators here at LaGuardia, all the folks I mentioned and everybody else who goes after grants, working with Laura and her colleagues, have continued to bring in grants and government awards, increasing the total value of what we call grants under management at the Research Foundation. All these grants run through RF, or the Research Foundation. So I think there's a slide, Gene, that we have. Here we go. I love this slide too. This shows you July through December, first half of this fiscal year. We had grant expenditures, right? This is a report that we get from the Research Foundation of about, as you can see there, $14 million. Right, that's all these grants funding all this different work at LaGuardia, faculty and staff programs. But it moved LaGuardia into the 5th position, as you can see, on what I call the RF rankings. There are 26 institutions in CUNY plus the central office. The central office is actually number 1, but it's unfair. They're the central office. So we always take them out of the list. And when you take the central office out of the list, you can see we're in pretty good company. And I don't know people like John Jay, but we used to be tied with John Jay, and now they're kind of, well, they're breathing our dust. No, we tape this. I always say things like that. And then Gina afterwards says, President Adams, we tape this and everybody can see what you say, and you say these things about other colleges. John Jay's friends. It's all good. This is a healthy competition. But anyway, congratulations to everybody for the success at getting those grants. Now, a couple of final, a couple of announcements. VP of Student Affairs, Dr. Alexis McLean, wanted me to mention the LaGuardia Assessment and Care Team, which is now, we call it LaGuardia ACTS, like Assessment Care Team, ACT. S, because then it sounds like a verb. LaGuardia ACTS, like we do stuff. Seriously, this used to be the Care Team. And it's a group that reviews and responds to reports concerning student behavior, coordinating actions to focus on safety, well-being, and crisis recognition. We're really trying to work closely with all of you, our faculty. Whenever you have issues with students who might be disruptive or showing other signs, indications of something that's going on, and they need attention immediately from thoughtful people in student affairs, the wellness center, disciplinary action, whatever it might be. So this team meets every week to review situations around student behavior. LaGuardia ACTS serves as the main contact for reporting student conduct concerns, offering consultation, assessing risk patterns, guiding interventions, and connecting students to appropriate campus or sometimes community resources. And if you want to learn more about the group, LaGuardia ACTS, there's a whole new section on the website. They have their own homepage, which is laguardia.edu/ACTS, ACTS. So thank you for that. Something else that I want to mention, it's always important to draw attention to this, and this actually is from the Office of the CDO, which reports to me. But CUNY takes all reports of discrimination, harassment, retaliation very seriously, including reports pertaining to sexual misconduct. And recently, CUNY, the CUNY system, enhanced the process for reporting these incidents. So just to be clear, we encourage anyone who may have experienced or witnessed discrimination, harassment, sexual misconduct, retaliation, to submit a report through the university's new reporting form. That way it's going through the whole CUNY system. It gets to me right away and to our office, our Chief Diversity Office, where we do the investigations. Anyway, it's designed to facilitate prompt review and coordinated follow-up. And this new incident reporting form, again, you can check it out and use it. It's pretty user-friendly. It's on the homepage of CUNY. We have access to it as well, but I checked it out yesterday. You go to the CUNY.edu and you can find it. So please visit the CUNY Discrimination, Harassment, and Retaliation homepage for information about this new reporting system, CUNY policies on discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and campus and external resources. Finally, 2 announcements from Wayne Levy, our CIO. Wayne wanted me to remind you, faculty especially, that there's going to be a little disruption in student emails this semester because CUNY is moving to a new system and protocol for student emails. Yes, I hear some grumbling. And this starts April 13th, so it's coming up. CUNY students will have a single inbox for CUNY and LaGuardia related emails. An email went out yesterday from IT, I think from Charles and Wayne, detailing this. I looked at it and thought it was just way too much to share with you this morning. But please, if you're not familiar with this, become familiar with it. Look at the email we've sent out or call IT, talk to anybody, because we need to get students to change their email addresses in this new system for them to understand how it works. And maybe after that, they'll actually open our emails. I don't know. That would be a nice result of all this. But it could be a little confusing for students in the middle of the semester. So please check that out. On a brighter note, while you're out, CUNY inked a new contract with LinkedIn Learning. We also sent some information about this out the other day. LinkedIn Learning is vast if you're not familiar with it. It's a LinkedIn platform. It's got 16,000 courses and professional development, activities that are now entirely free for all LaGuardia active students, faculty, and staff. So this is a major new thing, if you're familiar with LinkedIn Learning, for you, for your students, for all of us. And again, our team here can help you link your LinkedIn account to the LinkedIn Learning platform, do all of that good stuff, and you can take advantage of the training and educational programs. I want to do the last slide here is just to put some things in your calendar. We're going to do a big Earth Day event at La Finca on April 22nd. Promise that it will not be covered in ice and snow. It might be a little muddy, but it will be beautiful out there. And we're going to do a Cinco de Mayo event. Someone said, well, why don't you just do that on the 5th of May? Well, it falls on a Tuesday, and that's, club hours or Wednesday. We're working on this one. We'll get back to you on the date for Cinco de Mayo. Also, of course, on the LaGuardia Community Greenway with a beautiful mural that you all saw last summer, which has been covered. I'm curious to see how it looks, as the snow melts. Our spring theater productions are May 11th. That's a week-long series of things that are a combination of something the theater program is doing with LPAC based on the play The Trojan Women. So this is going to be complicated, but mark your calendars and come and see it, both in LPAC and our theater students. And finally, commencement, as I mentioned earlier, Thursday, June 18th, on the beautiful quad of Queens College. We'll see you all there. All right, that's enough of an update for me. I'm going to walk over to the desk, and Gina, let's bring up our first panel. Our first panel is on transfer initiatives, and we're going to bring up Melissa Grant, Assistant Dean for Advising and Academic Affairs, Ahmad Nasser, Senior Director of Institutional Research and Assessment. Thank you, Ahmad. Dr. Leah Richards from the English Department. Thank you, Leah. Yay. And Julianne Salazar, I mentioned her earlier, Interim Director of Strategic Initiatives, Office of Academic Affairs. So we're going to talk a little bit about transfer. Okay, we're going to try. And it was kind of warm in here, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Each panel is an hour. We'll be done by 4. No, these are going to be brief. It's to kind of give you a teaser, a little overview of stuff that's going on this semester. And so the first one, I want to go to Leah. Good morning. Good morning. How you doing? When should students start thinking about transferring to a 4-year school?
So it's something that absolutely students should be thinking about their entire time through. As faculty, we're supporting them thinking about that transfer. Of course, our emphasis is on their success here. Our emphasis is on teaching them what they need so that when they transfer, they are prepared to be successful transfer students. But we can also support them looking forward. Of course, in the first year seminar, there's an assignment around transfer. They explored, but students should see that not as a chance to make their final list, but as a time to explore, and we can support that. There are co-curriculars, of course, every semester. If students are sure about their plans, that's great. They're in an articulation agreement. They can follow those guidelines to prepare for transfer in that way. If they're not, they can meet with their advisors or their faculty mentors and talk about narrowing their lists, making their choices, choosing the right classes, not just for their success here, but to prepare them for transfer later. By their second semester, they should have attended their first transfer fair. And by their third semester, that is when we should start hearing from them because they are looking for letters of recommendation. They are looking for advice on their final choices and things like that. And then their final semester, that's just where they're going to finish strong and they're going to tell us where they're going to end up, and we're going to be so, so proud of them.
That's perfect. The perfect transfer pathway, Leah. But Julianne, tell us, reality check. Sometimes things go awry. What are some of the obstacles?
Obstacles, I think, first and foremost, they're the ones that we're super familiar with, right? How credits transfer, how they don't transfer, even with pathways, students having to navigate sometimes really complicated enrollment, right, systems and onboarding systems at new institutions, misalignment between institutional culture, right, and just general vibes of their new institution. And then I think there are obstacles that we don't talk a ton about, which is that a lot of our students experience a sense of loss when they leave LaGuardia, right? They build really deep and meaningful relationships here on campus, and I think are often surprised when they kind of feel a little bit of almost a tinge of grief. Right. And so where we see our students do well, which is, at schools that have these academies like the John Jay Justice Academy and the Baruch Business Academy, a lot of what I think contributes to that is that those academies have support systems that wrap around, right, the articulation agreements. So there's built-in enrollment support, there's built-in advisement support, and those systems begin while they're here. So there's a really nice seamless pathway that students can follow from the time they're here at LaGuardia. And even though we send most of our students to Queens College, right, most of us know, that partnership hasn't been there. And but I think over the past year, we've been doing, right, President, we've been doing a lot of work with Queens College to really build up that partnership, working with the faculty here at LaGuardia, working with the faculty there at Queens College to build a teacher academy, right? To basically take those best practices from John Jay, from Baruch, and apply it to an education academy here at LaGuardia.
Right. So it's emerging as our third academy, right? The
Correct.
QSTEM Academy with Queens College. Melissa, we used to have kind of a transfer office, right, where students could go knock on a door and see advisors to talk about transfer. And now our academic advisors, as I understand it, are integrating transfer advice and guidance into everything they do. So tell us how this transition is working.
Yes, thank you. This is a very exciting project for advising because this is something that's happening on a national scale. Institutions are realizing that you can no longer silo academic conversations with students without talking about what they're going to do with it, right? Their career path. So integrated advising normally refers to the integration of career and academic conversations. But in our case, because we're special, it includes transfer, right? We can't talk about the career piece with our students without talking about transfer. Now, this kind of advising takes more time. And it requires more depth in the relationships with students. So we've had to make 2 structural changes, specifically in student advising services, in order to make this happen. And one of them you've referred to before, which is the caseloads. I know some of you are like, oh my God, she's talking about caseloads again. But we've been double the national standard of best practices here in the SAS team, and we're 4 to 5 times higher than our partners, than the ASAP team and the college discovery team. So with the restoration of advising lines that kind of went away during COVID, we are moving towards getting these caseload numbers down, which is going to really have an impact, not just for the students on getting this kind of guidance, but for the advisors to be able to have richer conversations with their students and not just be putting out fires all day. But the other structural change is just as important, and that's with the caseload scope. So up until now, an SAS advisor has had to master 60 different curriculums. And it's actually, I've learned closer to 80 because there's subplans, and some of our subplans have subplans. So if you're going to be an advisor and stay on top of what are the best transfer pathways, what are the hot careers right now, how do you do that for 60 to 80 pathways? So we are now case loading on that team by fields of interest. So now advisors will specialize, and I know versions of this existed before at LaGuardia. It's kind of coming back with a new flavor. Fewer than 20 majors, in some cases fewer than 10 majors per advisor. So they not only get to know those areas better, they can build community among those students and strengthen relationships with faculty in those areas. So that when you mentioned faculty advising before, it can feel more like a team effort with those faculty and the specialty advisors guiding students on the best transfer pathways for our LaGuardia students and careers.
Great. Very exciting. Super important. Ahmad, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
You have been working on something, I think we started this last summer, these transfer dashboards. I know you're looking at how LaGuardia students do at the schools to which they transfer. Tell us more about the project, what you're doing with the information, and how is this going to help transfer? Why is it important?
Following up what Melissa was saying, there's so many majors and so many transfer ways, so many pathways. So that dashboard, looking at the outcome of students where they went, 90% of our students, our transfer students, end up at CUNY. And this dashboard for the transfer outcomes is mainly dedicated to CUNY. It is meant for everybody, meant for students. Number one, it's mainly for students, where an advisor can sit down next to it and he would look at the dashboard and he would look at the outcomes and he can tell the students, listen, if you're an accounting major and you business major, you ended up at Baruch, almost 60% of our students goes to Baruch, they will finish in less than 4 years. Versus if you go to choose another college, I'm not going to name names because we're recording. I'm not going to do that.
You're a smart guy.
See, I know. I'm learning from
You're much more
right here.
discreet. You're much more discreet than I am.
And I'm sweating and everything. So this is the chance. You tell the students, listen, if you go to this school, the chances are half of our students will finish within 4 years. You go here, you're gonna make 60%. If you go to school, our students love the school. 80% retain past the first year. Versus this school, not everybody likes it, and they tend to find elsewhere.
Do you get first semester GPA?
I will get that one too. Yes, this is where you'll do the best. If you're a full-time, our students get all the support that they need and their GPA, and they can take more credits. It's ultimately meant to be for students. Students will have the right to assess and decide how they're going to proceed. This is where they
super helpful information.
Yeah, this is where this is meant for. Advisors can use it. Faculty advisors can use it. It has to be simple for everybody to look at it and understand. This is the route.
Have you done all the majors? Are you finished?
We're working on it. One by one.
Okay.
It is really labor intensive. Everybody in the office is helping. Mohammed is building it out. It's a big job.
Thanks, Ahmad. You mentioned that 90% of our LaGuardia graduates stay within the CUNY system. For the 10% that go elsewhere, I'm curious, Julianne, you work a lot on helping students pursue transfer pathways to four-year schools that are not part of CUNY. What are those options like? I know we had a student accept a full ride to NYU yesterday. That was very exciting. But tell us more about students transferring beyond CUNY.
Yeah, so in some ways, transferring outside of CUNY is actually can be easier than transferring within CUNY, right? There's less administrative roadblocks. Students' credits are more likely to be accepted and applied. For our students, we're TEI, and shout out to our co-director, Misandoku, she just came back from sabbatical, where I think we've kind of provided a framework for that support for students. So it doesn't happen in just one office, right? There's recommendation letters, there's scholarship applications, there's essay preparation, there's info sessions to learn about different schools and different majors and where students might go. It's an institutional-wide lift. And so I think TEI has kind of provided somewhat of a structure to that kind of helps coordinate all those pieces. But the one thing that comes up frequently, and I think my colleagues will probably agree, is that we spend a lot of time encouraging students to throw their hat in the ring.
Right.
So a lot of our students will opt out of applying before even giving themselves the opportunity. And so I think when it comes to supporting students who are thinking about outside of CUNY, I think the biggest thing that we can do is encourage them and to give them that boost of confidence. They're going to get the emails, they're going to see the flyers, the events are going to be posted on the website, but a vote of confidence from a faculty or from an academic advisor, why don't you go to that NYU event? Why don't you go to that MIT event? We see makes all the difference with students.
If a faculty member has a student that expresses a desire to go to a school beyond CUNY, to whom should they refer that student? To you, to an advisor? Like, what's the next step for a student? What does a faculty member say?
Yeah, I think TEI is a good first step. A lot of what we do is kind of navigation. We're not always the ones that are providing the direct support, but kind of helping folks find where those resources are.
Great. All right, well, thank you, panelists. Great work. We'll have more on the data of the transfer pathways in the fall. We'll get Ahmad's full report up here. Our next group is going to talk about something we're launching this spring semester, the Office of Immigrant Student Success. Come on, don't be shy, VP McLean. Here comes Dima Bayraktar, Director of the Women's Center and LGBTQ+ Hub. Dima! James Bino, a student, a nursing major, and SGA Health Sciences representative and governor of the Club and Ethnic Affairs. Hey, James. Hello. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Alexis McLean is here, our VP of Student Affairs, and of course, Dr. Ingrid Vedas. Ingrid, Professor of Biology. So, Ingrid, I want to start with you. in the classroom, right? How do the challenges faced by our immigrant students manifest themselves in your class? What are you seeing?
In my class, the challenges that immigrant students face is it really shows up less in what they say and more in how they carry themselves. For instance, many students are hesitant to disclose their immigration status, even when doing so can lead them or help them connect with helpful information. There's a deep fear of exposure and real concern about family members, particularly when there is encounter with ICE. Also, some students, even though they could be U.S. citizens, they're still worried about their family being detained without their knowledge. Some students are worried, right, that their loved ones they're not going to be able to see their loved ones again. There's also financial stress, right, because some parents are afraid to complete financial aid forms because they think that information can then be used to be targeted by the U.S. and custom enforcement. This creates barriers for our students. What this often looks like is academic distraction, a lot of anxiety from our students, and mistrust, right? There's a lot of also misinformation in communities, and this misinformation can also lead to mistrust of the institute, especially school. But one thing that we need to know or realize is that our immigrant students are very resilient. And what we need to do or demonstrate is clarity, communicate with them, and have a classroom that is safe for them to communicate with us or to just conduct their work. So there's a lot of noise, and you could see that in our students, right? And it's very difficult to get them to talk to you, right, to provide the right information. But, with guidance and patience, this can really work for them.
Thanks, Ingrid. James, let's go to you. I mean, what are you thinking about yourself and other students that you know? What are some of the things that some of the obstacles, some of the things you face or feel that may not be obvious to faculty or to fellow students or staff?
Thank you. What I'm going to say is I think most immigrant students struggle with the pressure to be perfect. Most immigrants come from communities where you're told you have to do your best, you have to be at your best all the time, which is a good thing. But the cons come into play when it comes into the educational system. For example, most immigrant students do not have the opportunities that most non-immigrant students have. We can talk about financial aid, we can talk about a lot of things, right? These students face pressures to be at the best they have to be. They feel like they don't have the same opportunities other students are gonna have. Example, even when it comes to classes, for example, international students, they have to maintain 12 credits, which that is something out of the college's power, but certain students feel like, oh, this class is too much for me, I can't take it right now. They don't have the luxury to drop a class, they don't have the luxury to not take enough credits because they know that's going to affect them in the long run. And secondly, I think we're going to talk about the fear of stigmatization, because given our current political climate right now, most immigrant students are afraid. I am afraid. Being an immigrant student myself, I am afraid. At this point, it doesn't even matter what a student's immigration status is. As long as they're an immigrant, they feel like they're already on the losing end.
Right. Thanks, James. Well said. Thank you for sharing that. It's really helpful. So let's talk about this new Office of Immigrant Student Success. Alexis, this is your brainchild, your project, about to launch it, I understand. Tell us a little about the office and sort of where it positions LaGuardia in this world.
Sure. So the first is, this office will be the first at a community college in the system. It will be the first in Queens. And so I'm very excited about that. That was a note for the recording. But yeah, so the office is going to be fully launched during the spring semester. The full name is Office of Immigrant Student Success. We are in the final phases of hiring a director for the office. It's really going to be a full court press with respect to how we service and support students. There's a peer ambassadorship arm of the office. We will have, of course, the director overseeing grants and funding and reporting. We will also have community partners that we'll be working with to facilitate workshops. And most importantly, we have already begun conversations with legal entities that are external to the institution with respect to programmatic initiatives we can launch with their support. So the goal is to ensure that undocumented and immigrant students feel as though there's a one-stop shop on our campus with respect to a wide range of issues or challenges that they may be facing. I'm very excited about what's to come. I just want to echo James's sentiments. Many of our students often articulate to us that this moment in time has produced a lot of fear. And I think that it's awesome that the college community is going to rise to the occasion and support them in this way.
It didn't make my list of grants, but I think you recently got a grant like 2 weeks ago from the Petrie Foundation.
I did. I do want to thank the Petrie Foundation for their generous support of $160,000.
It's nice when it's very cool. And it's great when an organization gives you funding for something that you haven't even started yet. Yeah. No. We love it. The Petrie Foundation is amazingly generous, and they've been part of the plans for this. And so they are our first funder of the Office of Immigrant Student Success. Congratulations on that. Interesting. So, Dima, what guidance do you have for students who have these feelings that James was describing of fear, anxiety, other forms of stress, and things that faculty might see and want to, make a referral or get support? What do you recommend?
Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that, James. My fellow panelists, just talking about the noise, the pressures, the fears. They come into all of our offices all the time, right? And so I'm going to answer this question a little differently. I'm going to in two ways. The first is just in the moment, listen and validate, right? And just really knowing that being seen, being heard, and on a good day understood, right? We know that doesn't always happen, but that does something neurobiologically, and just a little bit of science, right? Like we know that the amygdala, our alarm system, really begins to quiet down once we're seen, heard, validated, and it really allows prefrontal, right, to come online, which we all know, that's responsible for perspective, planning, and emotional regulation. So, I never want to take a student out of their experience. I'm going to listen, validate. That would be my first recommendation. It really helps shift into a connection mode, right? I think too, and we talk about this a lot in our mindfulness meditation sessions and cultivating present awareness, just the practice of noticing, right? Of noticing the fear, noticing the pressure, noticing whatever is coming up without judgment or bias, and that creates just a tiny bit of space. Right? And so when we do that, we are less reactive, right? And we can make choice, right? And that's something that we can do with our students, right? And we can help them develop that practice. And the whole idea is that they don't have to be swept up by the noise, the anxiety, the pressures. But when there's that space, they can make a choice. Also just checking in, like what do you, when I say this to students right now, well, what does your system need right now? Like how much water have you had? When was your last meal? The rest. Maybe just picking up the phone, talking to a friend, really talking about those resources. We talk about kind of breathing exercises and the science of the breath, and just by taking that exhale, right, that lights up the parasympathetic nervous system, right, which we can use to ground. And then the other thing I'll just say briefly, which I know so many of us know about, and then making sure they know about the resources, right? Making sure they know about Citizenship Now, making sure they know that they can make an appointment with an immigration lawyer on this campus weekly, making sure they know about the CUNY Immigration Assistance Project, and then all the amazing resources that we have here on this campus, Wellness Center, LaGuardia Cares, faculty advisors. We're here to collaborate and to support and really meet students where they're at. So.
Great, thanks, super helpful. How about a round of applause for our panel and this Office of Immigrant Student Success. Thank you all very much. All right. And stay tuned for details when VP McLean hires the new director. We'll get more word out about the office. Third panel, come on up. Our provost, Dr. Billy Gastic-Brutata. Where's Billy? Here she comes. Followed by Sunil Gupta for our VP of ACE, Dr. Jason Hendrickson, Professor of English, CUNY Faculty Co-Director of Career Connected Learning. Jason always has 2 or 3 jobs going on at the same time. And Dr. Jessica Perez, Director of the CCPD, the Center for Career and Professional Development, here to talk about a big new initiative that spans also all across LaGuardia, CUNY Beyond. Billy, let's start with you. Can you give us a kind of high-level, basic explanation of CUNY Beyond?
A lot of the exciting attention has been on increasing opportunities for students to gain internship experience, right? So they can feel what it's like to do with their knowledge, to do with their skills, to build that confidence. And so as we build towards that, we also want to look for opportunities for students to do this in the classroom. And what's really interesting is that we do this all the time, but really students don't know that we do it all the time. And so that's another big piece of this, which is help students describe what they're doing in a classroom so that it's clear to the people who are looking for them to be able to speak about connections, to do that themselves. So I think that so much of this is, yes, a campaign to increase opportunity for students, but I think it's equally about helping students advocate for themselves, explain their experience, stand tall and proud of what they have learned and what they can do with that knowledge.
Great, thank you, Billy. Just to remind folks, this initiative is really a signature project of the chancellor, and he's raised a lot of money for it, and we applied for that funding, and LaGuardia and Lehman were awarded sort of the first initial grants to run with this initiative, and other schools in CUNY are applying right now, actually, for year 2. So we're in sort of the vanguard of CUNY Beyond, and we are learning as we're moving along and doing a lot of work. The structure of this thing comes from the CUNY Central Office, right? And there are 5 pillars to the CUNY Beyond initiative, one of which is career-connected learning, and we happen to have in our ranks a good friend who is the co-director of career-connected learning at the CUNY Central Office, and that's Jason. That's what I mean by lots of different responsibilities. Jason, you have been an advocate for career-connected learning for several years now. You're in the lead in this CUNY-wide. You're an advocate for it here at LaGuardia. Talk a little bit about what you're doing, why it's important, and how do you do career-connected learning in, for example, the humanities, or something that's not accounting or nursing, where there's so obviously a career pathway? That's a second question, but curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Morning, everybody. It's much hotter up here. Good job. He's doing a good job staying cool because we feel it. But first of all, I have to acknowledge that there is a whole team of folks here who do this work already, faculty here who do this work already, and there's a reason that we were chosen to be in that vanguard. Hey, everybody who's looking at us on the video, because, right, we care about our students, we do this work, and we understand the connections. And so you're kind of inviting me to talk a little bit about the how. Yes, I represent the humanities. I also have to acknowledge that our folks in STEM have had a very hard year. And so higher education writ large is being attacked. But what we can do, dovetailing off of our provost's point, really just naming and claiming what we do in our classrooms in terms of the skills that we impart, right? Our students are thinking so much about the what, and it's our job to connect them to the why. And that means naming, okay, this class, whether it's an English class or whether it's a biology class, is going to improve your skills in communication. It's going to improve your skills in group work or teamwork, giving them the vocabulary to move forward. That's one of the things that's a signature kind of what can you do now, right? We can talk about food. We all love food in here. And so, John said shout out to food. So, right, it's one thing to talk about a recipe, right? But it's our job instead to get them to cook, bring them to the kitchen. And for some of us, that's daunting, like the idea of teaching someone how to cook. Not everybody in here could throw down in the kitchen. And that means internships, like you just mentioned, but it also means giving them a taste. So that means if you can't cook, take them to the restaurant. It means if you are not connected with a career partner, then when you're doing group work, then maybe you're telling that student or that group of students, hey, who's the project lead right now? Who's the team lead? Who's delegating and imparting those skills? Because when they now go to the interview, they can say, in my classroom, I've done this, because that's what they have. And they are competing not just against other CUNY graduates. New York is it's the city where students come from across the country and the world. They're competing with our students. And CUNY Beyond is here to respond to that, to give our students as much of a leg up as they deserve. And that's what we're all here for. That's our common goal here as student-facing instructors, faculty, and staff.
Thanks, Jason. Super helpful. Jessica, one of those 5 pillars is work-based learning, really internships, and you are our go-to at LaGuardia for internships. Tell us how you and your team at CCPD are supporting CUNY Beyond, and what's this internship plan look like?
Sure. So we're the office that takes the students to the kitchen, right?
There you go.
And really, just some notes. We want to make internships accessible, academically meaningful, well-supported, and equitable. That's really our focus at CCPD, and working with faculty to ensure that these work-based learning opportunities are the core of the student experience. We want internships to be part, right, of why students want to come to LaGuardia. And our approach is about intentional access, so developing employer partnerships that align with the majors that we offer, and also student readiness and support, which my team right here is in the 3rd row, that do a lot of this work and really helping students pre-internship, during, and after. So once a student completes an internship, we're supporting them to either do a second internship, which the numbers have increased significantly over the years since the inception of SOAR, and also helping students into employed opportunities.
How's it going this year? And I mean, by the numbers, for example, I know you have some aggressive targets for this spring semester, right?
I do. We're doing well. We have about a little over, almost close to 200 students getting ready to start next week in paid internships. And the formula for CUNY Beyond is 30% of our graduating students from last year. Our goal is to place that amount of students in paid internships this spring.
Right. And, connect the dots back to Jana's team of the foundation who raised the money for the stipends, so no LaGuardia student is ever asked to do an unpaid internship, right? That wouldn't be right.
Yes.
So that's very helpful.
Thank you, Foundation.
Sunil, you've had a big hand in this, working with Billy and Eric and others to do the application last summer. How do you think CUNY Beyond, sorry, this is kind of a broad question, but how will it change the student experience at LaGuardia?
Well, it'll very positively and cohesively change the experience for students for all the reasons my co-panelists have mentioned, primarily because the focus on career success for individual students will start from the very beginning and not at the end. Right from career exploration, which is pillar 1, onto career-connected advisement, academic and career service combined advisement, onto career-connected learning, and then finally onto paid internships and paid work-based learning. It's not just internships, but work-based learning is a key component of that. And then finally, the employer engagement is sort of the spice in the cooking that makes it all happen. You sprinkle a little bit of that, and it makes it work. And so it's a whole effort that will go back to the students getting to learn the majors they're selecting, what that means, the ramifications, the career pathways, the transfer pathways, and where it can take them. And then onwards, the support from us, the entire college community, and in giving them those learning opportunities to really flex those muscles and learn on their own. And certainly the internships help tremendously. It's a big part of our focus.
All right, great. It's important you mentioned, and Billy's always reminding me of this, that it's, while internships are core to this sort of work-based learning experiences students have, assisting faculty with research projects, serving in mentoring programs, pre-mentoring programs, other forms of service, paid or unpaid, volunteer service in the community. All of that, can really drive more and more work-based learning. So, well, thank you, panelists, very much. More on CUNY Beyond as we hire staff and move forward this spring semester. One last panel. We saved a hot topic for the end because now it's really hot in here. So our last topic is AI at LaGuardia. This could be a very long discussion. My job, according to Gene, is to keep it brief, and then we wrap up. We're going to bring on the stage J. Elizabeth Clark. Liz Clark, Professor of English, co-director of the writing program. Here they come. Dr. Milena Cuellar, who's a professor of mathematics in MEC. Milena, Liz, Wayne Levy, our CIO, and Arti Maharaj, lecturer in B&T. Hi, Arti. Good morning. All right. Now, some of you may have participated a few weeks ago on a Friday in an event that Liz and her colleagues organized, which was a whole workshop with speakers and panels on AI. 75, 80 faculty people went. I was tied up in another thing, so I missed it, which was a great frustration to me. And because I couldn't go, I thought we'd sort of reenact the whole event here. No, we'd love to get and just have you all share with our audience here what's going on with respect to AI in the classroom at LaGuardia. Let's start with Liz. Liz, what's your experience been with AI and your students? What are you doing?
I don't really feel like my approach to AI has changed a lot as compared to my approach with technology in general. I think that students come into the classroom very confident about using AI, but they don't actually know what it is. And this really replicates where we've been with other technologies previously. So I'm really focused on AI literacy. We are reading and learning about AI. What are large learning models? How are they trained? How is generative AI different than other AIs? And really trying to establish that foundation. And I find that by the end of the semester, students are really surprised by what they didn't know, but then are also able to make an educated choice about whether or not they want to use AI.
Wow. Let's stick with faculty sort of experiences. Arti, what's happening in your classes?
I would start by, first of all, thanking you, President Adams, and your team for inviting me to contribute to this conversation. I would say that in the Business and Technology Department, we face a very unique challenge, which is the expectation versus reality gap that exists. And what I mean by that is, right now, the industry expects our students to have that baseline knowledge of how to use AI. And they have to know how to also collaborate with AI. But at the same time, the reality tells a different story. And what we've done in the Business and Technology Department is we have really tapped into data insights to help us understand and bring us closer to how students experience AI. So I would just quickly start by saying that we believe that what gets measured gets done. And one of the things we have decided to tap into is we have used 4 overlapping non-linear phases to really gauge and understand how our students are using AI. And that's through analysis, design, implementation, and follow-up. And this is a core business framework that is often used in the workplace to get a sense of when there are corporate problems, they would usually implement this framework, and also when there are new technologies that's sort of impacting and changing the processes. So if I go back to spring of 2025, we started in the analysis phase, and we rolled out an informal survey to business and technology students. And if I have time, can I read out some of the insights?
Sure.
Okay, so I would share, and you can interpret this data in any way you would like, but we have collected it, we've quantified it, and turned it into specific trends here to inform what we do next as a department. I would say first is we received 103 responses, in which 98% have shared that it is impossible for professors to ban the use of AI in the classroom, and that is because of how easily AI is synced on multiple devices. At the same time, we have found that 92% of students use AI for high-stakes exams, such as midterms and finals. And that same 92% have also shared the primary motivator for using AI is they just want to complete the work very fast. And we've also found that 33% lack confidence in using this technology. They do not understand how this technology works, but they use it anyway. While 12% have admitted that they feel very confident in their use of AI. And I just want to call out a point here that I want to highlight. 80% of the students reported that they're willing to or already pay for premium access to ChatGPT. And this is mainly because they don't have access to the textbook, so it would allow them to get the homework completed. So we've really leaned into these insights. And just to back up a second, there was a part on the survey which we left open for students to share their recommendations. And I did grab my popcorn and go through all of the recommendations, which is a separate session. But I would quickly say that we have used those insights and leaned into it to inform what we do next. So first of all, I want to call out our chair, Professor Napolitano, who always dedicate time at our department meeting to talk about AI. And this has been really helpful because it's a place where we have a shared community and we can share experiences, what's working, what's not working. At the same time, it sometimes translates into a knowledge sharing session. So that has been incredibly useful, where we also revisit the data to make sure we know what we're doing in the classroom. At the same time, we have moved, after we've quantified the data, we've moved into design and implementation phases, which is where we've come up with repositories to respond to the student concerns that we've received on the survey. The first repository we've created is an AI disclaimer repository, which is a collaborative effort by our faculty. All of us contribute syllabi language, AI disclaimers that we can use so that students know early on in the semester where that faculty member stands as it relates to AI. Coming out of that, leaning into students' recommendations, there was a large cohort of students that believe that they would really like professors to go through the acceptable use of AI in the classroom. And that was pretty interesting. So we've leaned into that and went back to the drawing board, and we've created an AI assignment repository. This is an adaptable piece of assignment. It's very flexible. It can be integrated in any program under the business and technology department. And one of the goals of that, of the assignments that were created and now lives there, is to make sure that we preserve the integrity of students' development of core competencies and abilities. And the reason why I say that, because on the survey, there is a 78% of students that have shared that they feel their use of AI is quite normal, and they currently feel like they're also over-relying on AI. So given that over-reliance, we have created assignments that can help promote critical thinking and help them start to think about their problem-solving skills. Coming out of that, we've also launched a global executive business speaker series. Some of you may have seen emails from me regarding that. This features industry insights and experts who weigh in on a myriad of topics, including career readiness and preparedness, but we always carve out time to talk through AI and what it means to the students in the classroom. We also have executives who weigh in on the ethical implications of AI. But I'll end really quickly here by saying that one of our immediate action items that was informed by the data we've collected is we're in the process of creating a department-specific AI policy that is unique to the business and technology department, so students understand from the first touch point where we stand as it relates to AI and our position. That AI policy will be informed by CUNY's academic integrity policy, and the elements of it will be in direct response to the data that we've collected. So through our data insights, we hope to continuously improve what we're doing and refine and constantly take a pulse on how our students are reacting and responding to AI. And through the democratization of our data, we can then use these insights to empower the work that we do.
Thanks, Arti, and thanks for sharing the results of the survey. It's a fascinating survey, super important. Wayne, you're our CIO. What are some of your concerns, or about AI at LaGuardia? What are some of your hopes for our AI future here?
So I have one of my concerns is how to support these guys with the hard job of reforming higher ed and figuring out how this works in the classroom, outside the classroom. We have our concerns that we always have in IT. I know security and access are always issues, whether it's tried and true CUNY first or a novel interface like AI. We're thinking about how we grant access, how we secure it, where our data lives, who owns it, what happens when we change vendors. And all those kinds of things are a big focus of IT. I'm also concerned that we aren't all ready to step into the learning zone and adapt, right? Even myself, I struggle with, I know how to do my job. I'm good at writing emails, and I have to, step out of that performing zone and use the tool in a new way to do my job differently. And on that, I'll give a quick plug and try to encourage everybody to give it a try if you haven't. CUNY has a contract with Microsoft that if we log in with our CUNY login credentials, it keeps our data inside of CUNY and it doesn't go out for training of the models or to give answers to other people. And that's one of the ways we're trying to secure people, trying to secure our data. And I'm hopeful for a lot of things. I'm really, we're hoping to, we got a grant from Central. We're hoping to release a chatbot on the website this year that's going to support our access mission that, can give an answer of what a WA grade means at 3 o'clock in the morning in Bengali. And that, like I said, I'm hopeful it broadens access to information and helps people reach answers in great new ways.
Milena, thanks for being patient. How do we ensure that AI narrows equity gaps rather than widening them?
That's a hard question. First of all, hello, everybody. It's very hard.
Hey.
So I think AI by itself cannot bring equity or narrow gaps to LaGuardia. It really depends on our collective decision-making and to identify what is really important for us. That's why it was so powerful, the event we had in January. So I hope we can continue having that kind of spaces. At the same time, AI can magnify privilege, right?
Yeah.
And you were mentioning the students are paying premium for that, right? So who can pay can get more access, can get more resources. But at the same time, AI can really increase access to quality education, to knowledge that people did not have access before. And I'm always first as a faculty. I'm in the classroom. And I've been using AI since 2023, and I went all for it, and then I realized that we have a big responsibility to provide students with the literacy to use AI. And the reason why is because I noticed that when I was setting like these fancy assignments to use AI, this and that, I noticed that the students who have already those skills were the ones benefiting.
Right.
So we always need to think about who is benefiting to what we're doing in the assignments that include AI and who we're leaving behind.
Right. Thank you.
And that's key. And I think also, after dismantling everything that I've been trying since 2003, I think I have a non-negotiable, and I hope we can all think about it. And it's the human aspect of the classroom, the interaction, the opportunities to work together. It makes me very kind of like emotional, because the students share with us how many hours a semester? 4 times 12? Depending on the class, right? And that's the only time we have to change or provide something for them,
right,
or to have that interaction.
Right.
So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Milena. Thank you, panelists. Great discussion. A round of applause for all of 16 panelists up here this morning on this steamy stage of LaGuardia's Little Theater. Thank you all for coming this morning to our opening sessions. Have a wonderful semester and have a great day. Thank you.